We are Group 16. My name is Andrew, and today I'm joined by my group members, Klara, Miriam, and Abigail. Our group decided to go with the Chartmetric case, and our title is called Bringing Joy to the World, a marketing campaign for Joy Oladokun.
So first, let's talk a little bit about Joy herself. She's a guitar-based artist who lives in Nashville, Tennessee with her wife and her dog. She has described her music as new music for old souls. Her biggest inspiration is Tracy Chapman. Excuse me. Her most recent album, In Defense of My Own Happiness, Volume 1, was released in July of 2020. And part 2 of that album is planned to be released in summer of this year. In the wake of the events of the past year, Joy said that the title and themes of her album, love, being Black, and being queer, have taken on a new meaning for her.
So Joy's target audience is predominantly female, with the majority of listeners and followers ranging from ages 18 to 34 across platforms. And her most popular locations by listeners right now are Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, and a few other major US cities across. And she also is gaining listeners in cities across Canada.
So Joy has a decent following. If we look at her Spotify followers over the past year, we can see she's had a steady incline. And with her monthly listeners, there have been some dips, but for the most part, it's a positive growth.
All right, to see those increases, we looked over what Joy is doing right. She's having a really good high fan engagement rate, especially on Instagram, where she is well above the average for her size, and is a major reason for us choosing our ideas, which we'll be talking about in the future. She is also creating a wider exposure through sync, supporting a consistent release schedule of singles and projects, and marketing herself through media sources and campaigns.
Using a forecasting trend line, we predict that her Spotify followers will reach about 60,000, her monthly listeners about 2.5 million, and her Instagram followers about 30,000 by the end of February 2022. And in order to reach this goal to keep growing her platforms and expanding her listenership, we came up with a couple marketing strategies.
All right, the plan. So our short-term goal is to help promote her upcoming album, In Defense of My Own Happiness, Volume 2. And to support that goal, we came up with two main parts. The first one being a Clubhouse podcast, and the second one being a brand collaboration, ideally with Weed Maps. The first one, so Clubhouse Podcast. This would be a weekly podcast released in connection with her current newsletter, Black Joy, where she would speak on subjects close to her, such as Black and LGBTQ inclusion in music. We chose Clubhouse as the medium due to its current hype, and as well as adding a veil of exclusivity and scarcity to it. We believe this is the perfect for her target audience because we found out there's a lot of data that suggests a rise in podcast consumption in recent years, and we found the main culprits of that is our audience of Gen Z and millennials.
So the second idea that we had was about brand collaboration. Joy herself describes her on her bios, on her social media bios, as a sensitive stoner, even having merch with that specific phrase. Pairing her with a weed brand, potentially creating some kind of items that were exclusive to that platform, maybe like rolling papers, would be a natural fit. Weed Maps was the company that we chose in this particular example. The company enables safe, legal access of marijuana to consumers worldwide. The business also focuses on social equity, which is something that's very important to Joy. Drug policies disproportionately affect people of color. In a July 2019 Gallup poll, about 12% of Americans smoke marijuana recreationally. And through our research, we found that the largest age range within those Americans is the 18 to 29 market, which coincides with her target audience. Joy's three top markets by listeners are Chicago, New York, and Los Angeles. Illinois and California have already legalized the recreational use of marijuana, and there's a big push in New York to do that by the end of this year.
So what are we watching right now? So we're monitoring Joy's Spotify monthly listeners by city. We expect to find growth in her current top 3 cities, which are Chicago, LA, and New York. and foresee LA to become her largest audience by listeners and followers. Based off of 2020 to 2021 trends and brand promotion, we anticipate to carry that momentum through weed maps and podcasting to boost her fan engagement, promote her merch sales of her Sensitive Stoner brand, and increase her social media following to expand on her target audience, all in the next couple of months to prepare for her upcoming album release.
All right, guys, you guys are out of time. And look at that. Thank you. Wonderful. All right. Let's start the judges with questions. Chaz, why don't you go first?
Well, yeah, that was a really interesting presentation, guys. I was interested, Clubhouse, how do you feel she could really get moving on Clubhouse and really start to get some momentum in that space?
Well, I guess we kind of chose Clubhouse because it's like the new big thing. I feel like that's growing, especially with like, there's a big trend in loneliness marketing, which is like the reason Zoom and like Twitch and Discord have been blowing up recently. So we hope we can like get on that sort of trend and try to connect with our audience in a way that is more personal. And we also feel like she has like a niche of being a Black artist as well as an LGBTQ artist in music. So like she can talk about specific subjects that are like near and dear to her heart, and as well as bring in interviews of like people that are like similar and have like a niche discussion that people would be interested in.
Cool.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks.
Thank you.
Charlie, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, two very quick questions. Can you clarify how you determine, how you forecasted the future predictions on the engagement? You had a slide there, and I just was curious about that. And then the second thing is, you rationalized Clubhouse, but you seem to have emphasized that the demographics was a key factor. So I'm wondering why not more emphasis into TikTok? And I don't believe that there's things like paid advertisement or that kind of reach on Clubhouse at this point. So, and the other thing is Clubhouse is actually exclusive because not everybody can have access to the platform through its referral process. So I think that there's, you know, pros and cons for sure. But yeah, well done. I'm curious what your thoughts would be on those two.
I can go ahead and talk about the first part of the question. For our predictions, we actually used Excel's trendline function, and we're all kind of new to the whole data analysis environment. So we understand that a exponential trendline isn't the most accurate for future predictions. And so if we had a bit more time and a bit more experience, we'd probably use a more accurate prediction model, such as moving average or something like that.
Yeah, and the second part of the question, I think we chose Clubhouse. We were actually bouncing around a lot of different ideas. We had specifically like Twitch in mind because she's also a gamer, and TikTok as well. But like we found that her TikTok is not as, I guess, not as active in like her, how do I put it, in her dedication to it. So we found like, we just thought Clubhouse was a best way for us to approach because it is the new sort of like wave, and that we thought that because Clubhouse is more exclusive, we thought that having that scarcity tactic brought into it is like a lot more elusive for her podcast, especially since like you see like streetwear brands like Supreme and stuff, like it's very, very exclusive, but like it brings a level of hype to it that we hope that she can bring to it, to her podcast.
Also, just speaking from like a just fan perspective, I know that some of the conversations that I've been a part of on Clubhouse as a listener or as a participant have been kind of more intimate. And I think that that's what a lot of fans, especially right now, are missing. I think everybody is missing that, you know, that sense of like intimacy that we had when we could actually be together in person. And so I know that just the next best thing for me is sometimes just being with other people in the same room who have the same kind of feelings or want to discuss the same topics. And I feel like Clubhouse is also a good venue for kind of longer form discussions, especially if she's going to be speaking about the LGBTQ experience or the Black experience, where it could be more of a kind of community forum.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
And Miriam, I agree with all of your points. I'm on Clubhouse probably 10 hours a week in all sorts of rooms. So agree. And my curiosity is why you guys chose Joy. I think she's excellent. She's also an independent artist. I think about the Clubhouse comment, it feels like it would be important to find the right tone of the execution for her that like she leads. So for example, there's a Clubhouser called Axel, who's an independent songwriter and artist who created the Lullaby Room. And every night in PST at 9 p.m., he lullabies and whispers the audience to sleep. He just brought in, it's gotten huge, and he just brought in the lead singer from the Plain White T's to be a guest. And so I think it would be all about that concept where it's like not too many people up on stage and like really being able to showcase Joy. But I do agree with the other judges' questions around it is a large audience now, but it feels like there could be more widespread For You page adoption and awareness about Joy on something like TikTok.
That's definitely fair, obviously, because that's where a lot of her audience like would be. I see her TikTok just from the kind of study that we did of Joy. She had maybe some sense of humor, like in her original Kickstarter campaign, where like part of what the tiers were is she would tell you a knock-knock joke. And I see TikTok as a place for her to kind of have more fun and maybe show a different side of herself. But maybe she has decided that that's not maybe the right kind of tone that she wants to adopt, or maybe she wants to kind of separate out the platforms, kind of making sure to play to their strengths.